Who turned on the fog machines here at Silverstone? This, a very, very intriguing race as everyone starts to grid up at the circuit for the major series on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. The grid currently as follows. Fernando Antoli takes pole position ahead of Gabriel Roos. David Baker starting from third. Marcus Pappenbrock in fourth position with Kurt Crum fifth. Andrei Rajkovic defining Lynn Luoto, Pete Harrod, Timu Toika, and David Barraclough, your top 10 as things stand. But we're here for 64 laps, 2 hours worth of racing, a classic British Grand Prix on this very, very special day. So everyone getting ready to be gearing up. Engine notes very soon will be rising. And let's get the show on the road then. Fernando Antoli setting everyone off. Great start there from Gabriel Roos from third position. He'll go to the outside, trying to make the move 3 wide into turn number 1, but not quite making it there. As Fernando Antoli goes through Baker with a big, big wiggle. That's going to allow things to go through. My voice is absolutely raw and sore, and that's going to mean that life's going to be a little bit more difficult. Cam Walsh joining me here in the commentary booth from #TeamJacksBerry. And guess what? This race, pretty clean off the start.
Well, we actually had a pretty hefty incident with a 593 of Hector Pereira. They were heading into the first corner, which has a name. I'll remember it someday. They were going into the first corner there, and it just seems like the number 451 of Tim Claessens just didn't see him. They spun around. That collected 3 cars. That was about it. A couple of other cars ended up picking up some slight damage, so unfortunate for them, but thankfully, they do have the ability to get that backup car running, and it is a long race.
And it's a classic Silverstone layout as well, so the opportunity to make moves is going to be most certainly a little bit more limited here as we run the old Abbey chicane straight on as they head to Bridge, and they were straight on at the Vale as well. Timu Toika and Pete Harrod having a nice little battle on Harrod, thinking about a move back into Priory, not quite being able to find it. David Barraclough hoping for that opportunity just behind, but not quite there as he looks here at Brooklands. Cam, talk for a bit. I need to go get a glass of water.
No problem, as Fernando Busquets will end up pulling us through to start the second lap here at the Silverstone in the fog. It's 71 degrees in the air. It's 71 degrees on the track. You wouldn't be able to tell, but it's the afternoon. They're going into the first corner. Now is Fernando. A little bit of a gap, maybe 7 or 8 car lengths. I would say probably about 2 seconds between him and Gabriel Roos. Then you go Kurt Crum, then David Baker, Marcus Pappenbrock. And here's the action with Tapani Linuoloto. Car number 19. He tried to get on Andrei Rajkovic, but it just wasn't there as Timu Toika looks on here as these Lotus 79 machines are rip-roaring ready to go here in the, I almost said Silverstone sun, but there really isn't much of a sun. They're already starting the serpentine here down the long drag underneath the Silverstone bridge. Here comes Tapani. He's got the lower downforce. He's got the inside. He's got the rears skirting as these big fat rear tires are trying to grip. The tiny Freck tires are trying to get him to go. As Andrei Rajkovic, he has the option to attack. No, he does not, because Timu Toika pulls on the outside and he's able to snip by. Look at that. He gets Andrei Rajkovic. So Rajkovic is able to get on the outside, and here comes Pete Harrod and David Barraclough. So good action here from position 7 on back as Linuoloto has cleared them.
Well, it's not clear just yet then from a certain Timu Toika who's on the outside. He holds it. Oh, that's a beautiful move. As now it's Pete Harrod down the inside looking at it at Priory, and they hold on. Rajkovic losing a position, but suddenly having to be aggressive because there was Barraclough taking advantage down the inside. Fantastic work there on the second lap of this event, doing a fantastic job to get down the inside. Fernando Antoli, though, checking out at the front of the field. 1.6 seconds, the gap to Gabriel Roos. Kurt Crum in third position with David E. Baker in fourth. Marcus Pappenbrock rounding out the top 5 as Marcus Niskanen and Josh Wolf battling it out for 11th position out on circuit. They're heading to the S's section. This is Maggots they're going to head into first. This big right-hander. Beckett's follows, then the left-hander. Chappell just afterwards, and then the run down the hangar straight. Josh Wolf with a good enough advantage right now. And Cam, how do you feel that this track is going to evolve over this race? How difficult is it to overtake, knowing how the ground effect works in these vehicles?
Well, you're going to have that long straight after the first sector to really close in. We actually saw that's what Tapani Lingolota was able to do over David Barraclaw as they went into the corner there. And I will say, so you're able to get that, and then you can also put a pretty good lunge through the final sector, those final 2 or 3 corners before you get into that long, winding right-hander before you get the drag down to the start-finish line. And, of course, the corner number 1 is kind of one of those dummy corners. It's a corner that you go, oh, I can go too wide here, but you can't. It is not really welcoming for too wide, as I will say Tapani has still been able to clear. But I will say the top, Kurt Crum, David Baker, and Marcus Pappenbach have all seemed to have closed themselves up into a nice, tidy little pack.
Well, they are just there together and they're working hard to make sure those times continue to fall down, and gap at the front just comes down slightly, down to 1.5 seconds, but everyone knows you've got to keep on plugging away to make some moves. As down the inside, a half look from Josh Wolf on Andrei Rajkovic, who's been going backwards, and nothing else but backwards, but not quite finding an opportunity to make it happen again. Looking to set up the run here through Magus and Beckett, and the fog certainly will be playing a factor. It will make the track a little bit greasy, a little bit slippery, and that's not what these drivers want in a vehicle which is very torque heavy to be really dealing with all of that issue. So now here comes Joshua Wolf closing down that gap, moving to the inside. Rajkovic not defending the move then in towards Stowe corner, and that is comfortably a move for Josh Wolf. If he can just hold on the exit, wide goes Rajkovic into the grass, getting away with it, but Niskanen easily getting a position.
Yeah, and so that is +1 for Marcus Niskanen in the 002, and he wants more. He is trying to see if he can get a counter here on the Grizzly as they work their way down towards the bridge, where it's a good run by the looks of it. Can Niskanen get on the outside or the inside? He won't make a dive. That's, I think, a good decision. If this was perhaps the last lap, I think he'd be riding and pressuring, but you know what, though? We have got a full Grand Prix ahead of us, Jake, and that's quite exciting.
It certainly is, and that does mean that fuel strategy is going to come into the works as well over 64 laps. You know that you have to come in and make a stop for fuel, probably 1 stop we are expecting here, potentially 2, but now for David Baker as he sits in 4th position, he knows that he's got to keep on with Kurt Crum, he's got to keep on pushing, and for the moment, he knows that he's got to go on board at the moment as we keep an eye on David E. Baker. 3 cars in the train. Pappenbrock very happy sitting and waiting. And with these old classic vehicles, Cam, old classic liveries coming into play. And these are some beautiful, beautiful liveries.
Yeah, I will say some of the teams went all out, and some just did what you need to do. And I will say I'm pretty happy with the Torque Freak Racing because that's, I mean, it looks classic. They've got the old cursive on it, and then I have to say Pete Herod there in that 21, the Team Mad Machine. It's basically a very similar, it's a familiar livery, only it's different colors, and I have to say I'm pretty happy with that one. And oddly enough, our leader doesn't, our leader has the Obsidian Racing one, but it is Marcus Pappenbrock. He just no seem to have the skin, but you know what? He's got the speed. When you got the speed, don't need the skin.
No, you certainly don't. Now Andres Silsan's looking to attack Andrei Rajkovic, who's again still dropping back the battle for 12th position. So now here is Silsan's thinking about, okay, can I make a move? Is there any opportunity? Maybe a bit of damage for Andrei Rajkovic isn't going to be very, very helpful, but really it's just a case of that right front of the wing slightly getting crumpled up. That's not going to be helpful for Rajkovic, as Andres Silsans wants to close that down and wants to have that ability to make that move. Currently not in a position to as they head to Klopp's corner, turn number 1 out on track. So Silsans waiting then, just looking to be a little bit aggressive here in this 25 car field.
Yeah, and this is 25 Formula 1 machines ready to run and ready to go here. And I got to say, as we're going to take a look at the replay of that lap 1 incident, Jake, and you'll see here, everyone seemed to have got away pretty clean for the most part, but it wasn't until they got into the first corner that trouble started, as it was 2 cars basically hitting each other, and then it just kind of from there.
It was a little bit greedy from a couple of drivers, I'll say that much. Everyone was wanting to try and get the inside, wanted a quick getaway, an easy getaway, but you have to be a little bit more patient in these classic cars, and as such, they didn't really do too much in order to help themselves so far in this one. Kurt Crum, though, still under pressure from David E. Baker, but Baker has been very much stuck in this window, about 5/10 of a second behind, 5/6 of a second. Never helpful when you're about that far behind, because you feel like you can't really close down too much, and you feel like you've got slightly more pace, but it's not forthcoming. It was a 10th close, though, by David Baker over that last lap. Good work.
Yeah, and he's enough there to sniff, but I think that Kurt Crum is probably running a little bit less downforce. You can tell simply because he's not closing on these long straights, as you'll be able to see here. He's able to close up just a little bit through Maggots and Beckett's here, as they're going to start working down that super long straight, which has a name, the Hanger Straight, as it's called, but the speeds are only maybe 3 or 4 mile an hour in David's favor, so I think Kurt Crum running a little bit less downforce, because if you look in the back here, Teemu Toika and Tipani Linulotto only a couple of positions back. These guys are very close as well, so a couple of good duels going on here in these classic machines around this lovely Silverstone, Sturgis.
Well, we're certainly seeing that, and Teemu Toika wanting to put himself in the championship eyes picture. He wants to be closing down drivers who are already looking to score some very, very good points. So Toika really wanting to get past the inertia sim racing machine of Tapani Linulotto as quickly as he can. He goes for the aggressive line as he heads through bridge, but unable to get anything as he heads to Priory. So line astern, they will wait one more time. But for now, if you look at Teemu Toika, Tapani Linulotto, they've got some company, and they won't be too happy with that. Pete Harrod, David Barraclough, just sitting back there, hoping something's going to happen in the next few moments or so. It's not often that we see that, but really looking to be aggressive. They want to just have that patience here. You don't win anything through knee-jerk and rash decisions.
No, not unless it's the very last lap and you're right there on the max attack. I will say great job from Fernando Biscuits. I mean, what, 1.9 seconds over 8 laps in these machines with this type of running and this type of racing. That is absolutely stunning. Gabriel Ruse is putting on a good show, as well as Kurt Crum, and then you got David Baker there. So, I mean, the top 5 is already doing. I mean, it might not look like these guys are this close, but I think for me, the big thing, Jake, is that these cars are maximum attack the entire time. These guys aren't going to be taking tires. These guys aren't going to be taking fuel. These guys aren't going to be coming down pit lane. This is kind of that last great era of cars where before it started changing with the whole turbos and everything like that, where it was literally just you set the driver out, you pat him on top of the head. If something happens, they can fix it in pit lane, but otherwise it's just the driver and the track, and I think that always puts on a grand old show.
It always did, and it still always does. So those drivers, no real telemetry to talk about back in those days. You went on feel, you went on understanding, and maybe a little bit different. The sim racing understanding of a Lotus 79 and a Lotus 49 as well to go with that as well. But these drivers understand that they need to be doing well. You've got to be a jack of all trades in this series if you want to be out there getting to the top. And 2.3 seconds, says Fernando Antony, is the greatest jack of all trades so far in this race. But Andrei Rajkovic side by side and losing another position, this time Diego Jimenez, and it is clear that Rajkovic is struggling. He started 6th, he's now down 8 positions off of his grid slot. He's now into 14th.
Yeah, and these cars are normally your setup is very universal almost. Some people would have a qualifying setup, but for the most part, you just take the fuel out of the car and lower it a little bit, obviously, or whatever you need to do suspension-wise, just to kind of get the car back to the numbers that you were at with a full fuel load, and that's it. Now, you got to remember, these machines, they do also have, of course, the adjustable brake bias, but they do have your front and rear ARBs, and I can tell you, I used to race this car for maybe about 4, 5, 6 seasons in a row. It is so important to have a car. Some of these drivers are going to have a car where they're not going to adjust anything all day. Other drivers, about every 5 or 6 laps, they're going to be tapping that ARB. And if these guys didn't set their cars up for the long haul, having a long 64-lap race like that, you could see perhaps towards the end the car starting to get out as somebody's on pit lane.
Yep, that is somebody on pit lane, and that
was one of the Grizzly cars.
Yes, it was one of the Grizzly cars, Dawson Brock. That was in the number 83 machine. Just want to get an eye out on that, see exactly what that has entailed, because he's come down onto pit road of his own accord, maybe got involved in an incident over the course of that last lap, and by the looks of things, he has not. So schedule potentially there for Dawson Brock, and not always ideal pitting early, but pit early he does, and looking to get himself out and going again. Toikido still harassing the rear of Tapani Lililuoto, as Lililuoto now under immense amounts of pressure. The gap down to just a tenth of a second as they look to hit the brakes into Stowe, and not quite there is Teemu Toika. The battle of the Finns going on at it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a wonderful grand old show. That Grizzly car was damaged at the start, and I think he finally just decided, you know what, I can't deal with the lack of front downforce. So he decided to come on in and get the car fixed. Teemu Toika is still trying to attack Tapani Liniuoloto, and for Liniuoloto, kind of surprising. He's won the championship in the official series Lotus 79 for many years. As Teemu Toika perhaps throwing to the inside, he could have, but he just figured that Liniuoloto was going to cut across the nose, which he did. So good call on both of these drivers' parts. These guys are doing an absolute fabulous dance. And for Pete Herod and David Barraclough, I almost wonder how much this is almost like trying to stick your hand in between a fight, trying to separate a pair of dogs that are fighting or going at each other or something. You almost don't want to stick your hand in there. If you're Pete Herod, maybe try to see if these guys can make a mistake, but it's hard, Jake, because, well, they're Finnish and they don't make mistakes typically.
Well, typically they don't, and that's why we see drivers like Ollie Packler get himself positions with teams like McLaren Shadow. So we understand that the Finnish drivers are typically the ones who are the most ice cool when it comes under pressure. So ice cool, they're probably singing an Outcast song at some stage. But now for Teemu Toika, he understands that he's got to keep on going and keep on pushing here. It's lap 11 of 64, already over 1/6 distance after 15 minutes worth of action. So they understand they've got to make positions. They've got to start making positions right about now, as we also have Josh Wolf going at it against Andre Silsans. Silsans, nothing he can do about Josh Wolf. He's down to the inside, and he has got the position locked.
Yeah, and this is kind of a big thing that we'll see here with the ground effect working on these machines. You'll be seeing, if Silsans really wanted to counter, he had the downforce to counter, but you gotta get your momentum with the mechanical aspect of your grip as well, so that's why he backed out of that one. But you'll be seeing perhaps more different positioning than we're used to in, say, GT or even regular open wheel formula of the modern day, simply because with this ground effect, the car is pulling itself down onto the surface. Whereas compared to how modern vehicles get their downforce, though some still use ground effects, it's nothing. I mean nothing compared to what these cars are able to pull in downforce numbers raw. So you'll be able to see cars hanging out positionally where we're maybe not used to, and that could always take a driver that's not used to these machines off guard.
Mistake for David E. Baker in fourth position has allowed Marcus Pappenbrock into the fight. He's completely checked away from Kurt Krum, who has now got himself past. Dawson Brock has a bit of lap traffic as well, just for good measure. So Baker under a little bit of pressure then. Pappenbrock wants to try and find a way to make a move, but starting to pull back slightly, and all of a sudden David Baker is under a little bit of trouble. So we'll see how he does over the next few laps to get back onto the pace once more, but you never want to go too wide when it comes to that Copse corner. Of course, if you run too fast and too wide, there is a slowdown penalty that could be accrued.
Yeah, most certainly, and it's kind of up to the driver taking the normal line to kind of play and behave. I think that's kind of the other thing that's aspect of it. We normally see great sportsmanship between Lotus 79 pilots, but we got to remember, this is the Majors Series. A lot of these drivers are not normal Lotus 79 pilots. The Lotus 79, a staunch and very vocal community, though small in the iRacing community. So, it's great to see these guys out here experiencing this machine. There might only be 100 people that race in an official series over the course of a 12-week season, but you know what? They are very healthy and very alive, and it's great to see this many Formula machines and all sorts of these drivers driving it, because that's kind of the big challenge of the Major Series. Is Dawson Brock is getting ready to yield to David Baker, who's going to have to go around the outside of that lapped car. But Jake, I just got to say, that's kind of the big challenge with the Major Series.
It is one of the big challenges as Toyka, again, just getting incredibly close to the rear of Lin Luoto. I think the pair of them understand. You've got to work a little bit harder if you want to make a move, and probably sitting back, saving himself the opportunity, just finding that rhythm in the early goings here, lap 13 of 64, and still it is going to be Lin Luoto just waiting, as he has the advantage by a couple of tenths of a second. On the brakes, they will go slightly up into this right-hander, and Toyka again just feigning that outside line as if he's going to dive to the inside at Priory, but really not quite finding anything that's going to be suggesting that otherwise. So he's pretty much stuck in the middle, and it really does just take some time.
It does, and it seems to me that Lin Luoto is running a very low downforce kit compared to Teemu Toyka, because Teemu Toyka is able to catch every single time under braking. But this is the thing here, as they're coming into Cook's corner, Lin Luoto is just able to stretch just a little bit. He takes a little bit of the curbing, but he seems to be able to stretch on the straights. But then watch how close Teemu is going to get here through Maggots and Beckett's before they get to the hangar straight. As I just think that for me, Lin Luoto run a little bit low downforce.
Yeah, and this is only allowing Harrod back into it. And what's going to make my life very, very interesting is that there's two David Bakers in this field, the David E. Baker and the actual David Baker. So 33, David Baker chasing down Bram Reniers. This is the battle for 15th position. The other David Baker's in 4th position, still holding off position number 4 overall. Is Lin Luoto now will have to deal with the traffic. Dawson Brock, Toyka, Harrod, Barraclough maybe starting to fall away a little bit over that last lap. 29.8 from Lin Luoto, 30 flat from Toyka, 29.6 from Pete Harrod, who was the quickest of the 4, 29.8 from David Barraclough. So positions certainly not changing, but times certainly are being really closely exchanged.
Yeah, most certainly. And Teemu Toyka has closed right back up to Tapani Lin Luoto, Jake. I mean, it's surprising to me. It's like every single time Tapani is able to get by, get a break, and he manages to pull away. And Teemu just always seems to be able to come back, as they're going to have to go now around the Dawson Brock Grizzly machine, as he'll politely let them by, including the machine of Pete Harrod. So it's good that everyone was able to get by, but it's great to see this battle. But I cannot understate how fast Fernando Busquets is going right now. After 20 minutes of racing, Jake, 4.2 seconds. That is absolutely stunning.
Well, Fernando Angeli just went purple on that last lap, and what's going to be more interesting about these vehicles is because it's so heavy, the fuel loads that they actually managed to get. Do you feel, Cam, that these lap times are only going to get quicker and quicker as this race goes on?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we got to understand another thing with fuel. These guys are probably running maybe 34 gallons of fuel. And you got to think, how heavy is 34 gallons of fuel? That is, according to this, 154.5 liters. That's max fuel load. I don't know who's running a max fuel load. Maybe they can eke by with a little bit less. But you just got to think, nobody comes in and refuels. That's not a thing. That's not what these cars are built to do. Though somebody might come in and get fuel, maybe that it might work. But for me, it's absolutely sensational to have a full Grand Prix, because I don't think I've seen a full Grand Prix before in the Lotus 79 here on the iRacing service.
A full Grand Prix it is at the moment. David Baker against Bram Reniers. This one still going on for 15th position. Baker starting to get a little bit more antsy. The dough may be rising a little bit as he looks to try and score his way past another position. So Reniers just being the tentative one, of course, at this old Silverstone layout. Worth noting, iRacing in the middle of development, as stated on the iRacing forums, of getting a brand new Silverstone. So this may be the last time in the major series that we find ourselves at this Silverstone circuit, but there will always be a place for this. And the best news would be if there's a new Silverstone, Cam, free content.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I gotta say, we've been waiting for a new Silverstone for a while. I really like driving this one, especially the classic historic Grand Prix circuit. Actually makes it why I don't really normally come to Silverstone and other machines, because for me this is just the circuit that my muscle memory knows, and which is very difficult to just kind of go, all right, we don't need to take the full where's the chain? I closed down the track map. You know, you don't have to take the long straight. You kind of take that left hand kink going under the bridge. I will always forget that if I'm not on the historic circuit. You know what? Getting a brand new Silverstone would be great and good, but you want to know another thing, though? No bumps. It would be completely smooth.
Oh, yes, it would. A brand new track surface would make driving maybe a little bit easier in some respects, as still Team Mutoika are unable to make this move onto Barney Little Auto, P6, P7 right now. They are thinking about maybe Marcus Pappenbrock 3 seconds down the road, who did a 29.7 that last time by, because that was a 29.3 from Team Mutoika, who is starting to fall back a little bit, but has certainly found just an inch, a modicum of pace, and is starting to bring that gap back down again between 0.2 of a second, and Toyka unable to find anything really to go gain that massive advantage.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, like, I wish we could just do like an onboard lap with Timu here, just because he's trying to hunt down Tapani, and it is just, it's so difficult to do. I have not had the opportunity to chase down Tapani Lignuoloto. He is exponentially quicker than I will ever be. Let's be real here. But I can say, when you're in that situation, and for me it was the mid-pack back when, as Timu Toyka, again, he stretches out. Just, he opens that door, and Tapani just never takes the bait. He is just so consistent with taking his line, not looking in that mirror. But for me, with this duel situation, you got to remember, as Timu loses a little bit of the rears, he spun the rears just enough. He had to put some oversteer in it, which is perhaps showing he's got to adjust his ARBs a little bit, Jake. But for me, it is probably, it's frustrating, but in another way, it is the most exciting duel you could possibly imagine, because the cars are so similar, yet you have to build the setup specifically to you as a driver. You can never just take a setup off the setup shop and go quick. It has to be personally for you, and that's what makes these duels great.
There's been an incident for Bram Reniers. He's been collected ultimately, which was never, ever going to be helpful. Don't quite know who, but that was at Copse Corner at the start of lap 17, which is the one that they have just come off of. We're now on lap 18 of this event, and yep, there was a very, very horrible bit of contact, and that's not what you want to see from Bram Reniers. He was having a pretty solid run.
Yeah, and it includes one of the David Bakers, the one without the middle initials. It is so easy to do that. You swing going into one. You got to expect your arrow to work. He hit the bumps, went a little bit wide, clipped the grass. He tried to straighten it out, but the car bottomed out, and once it bottomed out, there was nothing he could do. And for David Baker, he took left rear damage.
Yeah, and well, what we're trying to understand from the strategy that was played in the Oceanic split, or the International split, shall we say, was it was a one-stop on lap 35 compared to a no-stop, which second place had, and second place finished 10 seconds back. So strategy, most certainly a key factor in this one, as we're on lap 19 here out of 64, and looking at 1/3 distance, the drivers may be starting to think, okay, we're gearing up towards that mid-stage of the race. When's the right time to dive down in and make an important stop?
Now, lap 35 will be just a little bit after midway. Midway is lap 32, so it'll be good to see. You know, hey, it's okay. You know, these how the fuel goes. I believe it is just jerry cans into the back of the machine. It's not like they've got a fueling rig or anything like that. But you know what? If that is what is quick, then let it be quick. You know, that just we talked about how much weight that was, Jake. I mean, 150 liters, or 150 whatever liters. That is a substantial amount of weight. So a little bit quicker at half weight. So let it go. But it's interesting also, perhaps, is Linuloto perhaps having the fuel for coming in on lap 32, and perhaps Teemu has the fuel to go in on like lap 35. So it's interesting, and it's even more intrigue into this lovely little Grand Prix we got going on here.
Oh, yes, we do. And there's a spinner, and that is James King, and that is in Beckett. So he was heading through Maggot. He just gets heavy over the curve. The vehicle turns around on him, and that is a long and lazy little spin, and it's going to be one that kills the tyres as well. James King struggling for Team Bushfink.
Yeah, and he locked the fronts, trying to kind of keep it from spinning around on him. And once that happened, the car was just going to go around. Great place to spin the car. Let's be real here. But it should be all right. Just give him a couple of laps. The tires will be all right. These are extremely hardy tires. They didn't really have the idea of, hey, you know, if we have a tire that degrades, people have to come in and pit. They didn't think about that in the 70s, because remember, this car was built in 1978. It's not like they used computers to build it.
Well, that's very true. You had a drawing board and a very, very clever man called Herbert Chapman. So they very much had themselves every opportunity to design that nicely. But still, Toika unable to find a way past Tapani, Linuloto right now. The gap's just starting to extend a little bit here. This is the closest battle out on circuit, with Pete Harrod just 1.4 seconds back of everything that is going on here. Toika just waiting for the right move to try and get himself through, but right now has really not found anything substantial, as he has just been playing that patience game. And for Teemu Toika, I know he gets a lot of fans when it comes to the viewers who continuously watch this, and well, Teemu Toika looking to impress once more here at this track.
Now, 21 laps in, so we're about, what, 1/3 distance already. I mean, you talk about a blazing pace. This is lightning quick around the Silverstone circuit, and I think maybe the air temperature has something to do with that, just how cool it is. 71 degrees from the Fahrenheit. Don't know how that is in Celsius land. But it's been a great race so far. Everyone's paced out. We've got a little bit of lap traffic, which is completely normal in the Lotus 79. The community is very open to pretty much all skill levels, but you also got to remember we had that turn 1 incident, which was very unfortunate because it took out maybe another 4 or 5 cars, which were looking to have a good day. But you know what? That is Grand Prix racing at its most normal category, I suppose.
And in Celsius land, where the party never stops, it is 22 degrees at the moment, so it really is a very, very cool one at the moment. So for the moment, Linuloto, not much he can do here, just keep the laps in and make sure they are tracking along nicely. Still got that battle though between Kurt Crum and David E. Baker as well. That gap 1.6 seconds. David E. Baker, they've been trading lap times over the last couple of laps. It has stayed pretty stagnant between the pair. Over the line comes David E. Baker, does a 29 flat. Beat that with the 29 flat of Kurt Crum. Everyone's just stuck here. They can't really go too much faster. And the 29.2 from Toika takes a 10th out of Tapani Linuloto, so brings the gap back to 4/10 of a second there or thereabouts, 3/10 of a second actually. But again, Linuloto, high downforce, really struggling to find a way through here. It's almost like the Red Bull effect here, shall we say, Cap?
Almost. I mean, and that's just kind of how it goes, because Tapani's setups, Tapani is always sharing his setups in the Lotus 79 community. The gearing and the arrow never clicks for me, as here comes Teemu. He might have the opportunity finally after 20 some odd laps of chasing. Is Tapani gonna get the grip on the outside? He's not. He slips just a little bit, but he's gonna have the counter coming into the corner here. It's a quick left as he's gonna get on the brakes. There you go. There's Tapani Linuloto, and Teemu Toika, he has to just sit behind Intrepid, Integra, whatever his team is, car once again, because he might come on this side, but Jake he had it almost,
but as we all know in sim racing, almost does not constitute a move, and you will try again, Mr. Toika. So really not finding himself the chance to make that move, maybe the best chance that he's had all race long to get 6th position, as now Hector Pereira is a bit of lap traffic in front of them. That's not going to be too too helpful in the long and short for the inertia racing. Yes, there we go. You've finally got you to remember in the inertia racing team effort, but keep an eye again on David Baker. He's just pulled that gap down.
Oh, actually, again. Incident with Zapani.
Oh.
As Hector Pereira was a lapped car, he was trying to let him by, going into corner number 1, but he touched the grass and came back across.
Oh, it's not much that Lin Luoto could do there. It was just Pereira not being aware enough of his surroundings, just running off a little bit wide, and that there has allowed Teemu Toika the chance to go down the inside on the run to Maggots and Beckett's, and just like that, Lin Luoto, could really be struggling with suspension damage. They're not well built in terms of suspensions. They are light and they are fragile. That was really the Lotus way. Be light and be fast.
Absolutely, and I will say, when it's an angled touch, that is where the damage comes from. If you pancake the rim, for whatever reason, when you pancake it, it's not bad, as we saw the replay of Teemu getting by. It's not terrible. It's when you hit just the wheel at an angle, it is just damaged like that. And you can have very minor camber damage and very minor caster damage. Here comes Pete Herod, so obviously I think there might be something going on. But you know what, though? Another thing, we are close enough to the pit stops. He could hang on to that machine. Might just have to dial it out with the ARB, maybe a little bit on the brake bias. But you know what? If he can hold on to get that car back up together, he might have the opportunity to chase down Teemu Toika, because Teemu Toika now, they're coming across the line without having the car in front of him. He did a 1:30 that last lap, but this is going to be his first flying lap on his own. Let's see how the lap times come in.
We certainly will. Pete Harrod did a 1:29.8, so he has just turned up the wick as he wants to keep on chasing for David E. Baker. They abstain again, but more traffic now. Tim Clayson's here as Gabriel Roos finds a way past Eric Mickey. Mickey struggling for this one. Oval specialist and all, was so good at Indianapolis, but wasn't quite close enough as he had himself a big incident. And that's going to be a little bit nightmarish here, because when you get 2-3 vehicles in a row, you're pretty much thrown out of your rhythm cam, and rhythm is the only thing you have as solace here in these vehicles, as Kurt Crum has Tim Clayson's running wide, but down the inside of the Top Freak machine he goes and gets the position that he needs. He gets a little bit of a gap to David E. Baker, but that gap is under a second.
And Eric Mickey, he's happy about this one. Kurt Crum, his teammate, is able to get by Tim Claessens, who is in 20th position. Eric Mickey's in 19th, going to build a little bit of a gap here. It's great to see how the cars are running through here. And when you do deal with lap traffic, these guys really are racing their own race, as Bram Reniers lets everybody go on by. He was damaged earlier on.
Claessens is off.
Whoa.
Big incident that he had coming out of turn number 1, Cops Corner. He gets on the AstroTurf and the vehicle snaps on him and into the inside Armco he goes. Tim Claessens' engine goes. He is out of the event.
And that's an absolute shame, and it's so easy to do. These cars, you want to talk about the clearance between the height. We're talking about 0.9 for your normal front ride height. 0.9 of an inch. And so when he went from the AstroTurf to the pavement, the entire bottom started buffeting off the ground, and he went around and there was nothing he could do there. Very unfortunate. Turn 1, it's pretty difficult because you got that strip of grass. If you're going to go, just completely go into the grass, go into the outside pavement, it's the only way you're going to be able to save it.
Yeah, that's very much the case. So Tim Claessens pays the price for running wide out of Cops Corner turn number 1. Not what he wanted to do, but ultimately the result that he will be given at this stage of the event. Worth noting though that still Teemu Toika holding a semblance of good speed right now. Did a 29.4 that last time by, a 29.5 from Lin Luoto, so cleared the damage, not affecting him. But now David Barraclough started to come back into this. 1.2 off of Pete Harrod, but struggling over the last couple of laps when it's come to time.
Yeah, as the lap times have been coming in, it's ever since that incident, he has been going pretty much, I think, a little bit slower. He's been running 29.5s instead of 29.2. Actually, his lap times are pretty consistent, actually, so I'm not sure how much damage he actually took off of that. But Timu Toika is also running pretty quick, and Pete Herod, he ran his fastest lap that last lap. Now that he has got the blood in the water, sort of, from watching Tapani Liniolotto have that incident, he knows that he now has the opportunity to catch him, Jake.
Yes, he does. 29.1. His fastest lap of the day, faster than the two drivers in front of them in terms of fastest lap representatives. Also keep an eye on David E. Baker and Kurt Crum. That gap down to under 0.6 of a second. So the number 7, Kurt Crum, who won the Indianapolis 500 here in the European Majors, he wants to go and get himself another great result in an open-wheeled Formula-style vehicle. So really, about David E. Baker and how he wants to make that charge. But Tapani and Timu have got to be careful about Pete Harrod. Team mad, and Pete Harrod really goes under the radar as a driver who can impress. And honestly, I wish more drivers would pay attention to those like Pete Harrod. You don't often see him too much when it comes to likes of GT3 or say open wheelers, but you definitely would find him in a Kia Optima.
Yeah, most certainly, and he's actually, that's kind of the thing. You get these drivers, almost like a Tapani Liniolotto or a Timu Toika, they're lightning quick, but you'll only see them being lightning quick in something like the Lotus 79 or the Kia or the Nissan GTP or perhaps maybe like the Pro Mazda or something like that. These drivers that have massive speed that never really seem to get to show them off to the grander community, which is another reason why I really, really like this major series. Because you're seeing all the specialists being able to go into their comfort zone. As Pete Herod, he's just able to sniff just a little bit down the stretch. You can really see how fast Tapani is in a straight line, Jake. It's very impressive that he's been able to keep these lap times consistent with everyone else around him that has so much downforce.
Let's go on board then with Pete Harrod. Let's take you a lap and a little bit around this Silverstone circuit. We're going to take you RaceSpotTV fan immersion powered by ATVO. Chase is still on then for Pete Harrod as he looks to close down Liniolotto and Timu Toika as they've got a little bit of lap traffic in front of them that they will have to contend with. As keep an eye on David E. Baker. He started dropping back ever so slightly over that last lap, 0.2 of a second, and he is now 1.3 back behind Kurt Crum in the battle for the podium. We did have Andres Silsans under pressure. He's just got Hector Pereira to go get by instead of traffic, making life quite difficult for a lot of vehicles right now. There's only 16 remain on the leading lap. It's a battle between Travis Henderson and Jason Plato going on at the moment here, Cam. This one, a little bit further down the order, but the Triple Eight looking great, and for the moment, Fernando Anthony is going to take them to school in understanding what it's like to drive a classic.
Yeah, absolutely, which, I mean, I've been out of the circle as Pete Herod is able to maybe close in. No, he does not. He almost jumped to the inside here in the last sector, but he might, I thought he was going to certainly dive to the inside, going to Brooklands, but or to Priory, but he does not as they head into Brooklyn. So Pete Herod giving me a little bit of a but no, it is completely understated that Tapani Liniolotto has won championship after championship in the online iRacing series. To have Fernando Busquets not just have a gap, but to have a 25-second gap is just absolutely sensational. Now, this is the important thing to note. The normal Lotus 79 official racing series would be probably the last lap of the race, Jake, because it's about a 45-minute race. That would be it. This would be it. We have an entire other race to go. That's what makes it so exciting. As right now, Tapani Liniolotto is getting a little bit caught up in some traffic behind, I believe that is the car, Mickey. So it's great to see, and we'll see how this battle develops.
And I wonder how Fernando Anthony would do against some of the Lotus 79 legends, the likes of Nuno Moreira, Jerno Friche, Juha Nora Lampi, and Sergio Macias. I would love to see that sort
Cam
of
Walsh?
ability in pace. Yes, Cam Walsh as well, even though Cam Walsh would probably be fifth.
Get lapped?
Yes, Cam would get lapped a lot. So
No, only two laps. It'd be about, let me put it this way, I would probably be about maybe 13th or 14th, but what would happen, I probably would have gotten collected in that first lap incident. That would have been it.
well, fair play to you then, and I would probably be disqualified after 10 minutes. So either way, we're both going to be in a little bit of a pickle, but it stays as it is out on circuit. Lap 29 starting of 64, so really close to that halfway stage, and at the moment these gaps have certainly opened up. No real chance of attacking. Baker has pulled the gap down though to just 9/10 of a second, and both of them are reeling Gabriel Roos in, who did a 1:28.7 last time by. Gabriel Roos doing a very good job of actually wheeling this Lotus 79, the Workiva Kinetic Lotus 79, around the track with a very minimalistic livery design that they have in the 323, but it's very clear Bombshell are chasing, and as are Grizzlies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for Gabriel Roos, I gotta say, I'm not familiar with the name in the Lotus 79. Like I said, I haven't been following the last couple of seasons, but to see people like Gabriel Roos and Kurt Crum and Marcus Pappenbrock, to see these guys in here wheeling these cars so quickly, God, I wish that we could see them in the regular series, just because, having these quick drivers, it's wonderful, and I hope that perhaps another section of the major series, it opens people's eyes up to exactly what the iRacing whole platform has to offer. I've been watching now this battle between the 292 Andreas Slisons and Diego Hermilia, the 510 Bombshell, as Hermilia has been able to close in and is catching the 292, hasn't been able to pass, which is what we've seen here today at Silverstone, but hey, at least it is another battle to keep an eye on.
And that's surprising, seeing as there is a lot of high-speed nature with this track. You feel that it's the lack of real braking zones that makes overtaking so difficult here at this classic layout?
I think for me, the big thing is that people don't understand the mile an hour as the 323 comes into pit. That's Gabriel Roos. So just as we said, lap 32, that's that work of E machine you were talking about. He'll get that the car up and eager. He'll probably do the quick repair. No, he does not. So then he'll get underway. There he goes. But I think for me, how you pull into the corner as Gabriel Roos spins out coming out of pit lane. He decided to take the long pit lane exit, and that did not work out in his favor as he's now pulled out onto the track. That's not going to be good. That, I think, drains away anything you might have gained by coming into the pits to save time.
And that's what you call torque oversteer. Trying to put the power down. The wheel said, no, we're not having any of that. And as such, Gabriel Roos takes a little bit of an oopsie-daisy. Doesn't go fully around, but puts him behind Marcus Niskanen now in 10th place on the road. So that just tells you all you need to know then. If you're Kurt Crum, you can come down, make that stop, and probably jump a certain driver as well in that stop as well. Yeah,
most certainly. And just to talk about Silverstone a little bit more, we're throwing these cars into these corners at about 105 to 100 mile an hour. It is a massive amount of speed. That's how you take the corners quickly. you decelerate slightly, you throw the car into the corner, and then you trust your downforce to pull you, and then you punch out of the corner. It's not... this track is really favorable to the Lotus 79, which is why it's so fun to ride around here, because you get to trust your grip so much and wing the cars around. It's not... When we see GT cars here racing, Jake, there are multiple locations that can really open up the race. These don't exist here. It's up to the drivers to knife edge their way through their opponents, rather than GT racing, where sometimes passing can be a bit straightforward.
Yes, and I think for those looking to pit right now and get fresh tyres and out going again, those who aren't confident probably will. Those who want to go for the no-stop probably have faith in the bike grip a little bit more than some others, and they will be hoping to try and make some moves, as now we still see Diego Jimenez and Andre Silsans having a battle. Silsans, though, very aggressive through this lefts and rights here, the opening section complex. Maggots and Beckett back on the power, looking very, very green at the moment here. The surroundings, shall we say, of Britain is, of course, Britain has been involved in a very long heat wave, and everywhere else seems to be a little bit brown.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I'm sorry about the whole heat thing. You guys are not used to that, and yeah, you gotta. I doubt if you guys have air conditioners. I doubt you have sprinklers. So if you don't have sprinklers, yeah, the grass is. Yeah, you got nothing. Yeah, you gotta water the grass. That's a normal thing here in the States. I don't think you guys understand that concept. You take water and you put it onto the grass. I mean, normally that happens from the sky. But apparently that hasn't been happening. Travis Henderson is on pit lane. He's in position number 17. He'll get his pit stop off and away. That's another one of the Grizzly cars in. And Grizzly, a big supporter of this European split. We're happy to have them, though they are a Pacific Northwest team. But it's great to see them here. A couple of cars as Travis Henderson will pull out in front of his teammate David Bigger.
Yep, Marcus Niskanen down on the lane, as is Andres Silsan, so the pair of them looking to make their first stops of the day as we are over the halfway stage in this race. So for now, this is where we start counting back. The road to home continues here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. And a little reminder for all of you who do watch our content, this is not the only place you can catch our content. You can also catch all our World Championship series that we cover on the brand new iRacing Esports Network. That is very, very close to 2,000 subscribers already. Make sure to check that out if you get the chance. So for now, at least here, Cam, Fernando Antoli, case of when, not an if, it's just when do you want to go and make a stop. 15.7 seconds an advantage over Kurt Krum. I call that one eternity as Marcus Pappenbrock hits the lane.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrei Rajcevic, by the way, the number 99 machine, he pulled out. He came out of Cops Corner just as Niskanen was, the 002 machine was coming out of the pit lane. They went side by side through Begets and Maggots, and Rajcevic was able to get by before they cleared Beckett's. But it's interesting here because you got to remember you're really coming out onto a high-speed section from pit lane, as we're seeing a couple of these cars do just that. Here comes Marcus Pappenbrock.
Hex Pereira around at Brooklands corner, and that one just a loop around, which isn't very helpful at all. So for the moment, Hector Pereira really struggling. It reminds me of Felipe Massa, I think, in the rain about 7 years ago in the Ferrari. Just every time you look at Hector Pereira, there's a spin.
Yeah, and then there was also as Marcus Pappenbrock and Gabriel Roos. We remember Roos had that spin. Pappenbrock was able to come out ahead of him. Pappenbrock was behind Gabriel Roos at the beginning of the pit stop cycle, and here comes Gabriel Roos on those warmed tires, able to get by. He goes to the inside, and Pappenbrock has got nothing, which is kind of surprising. But I personally, I would not have taken tires. That would be just me. I'd have the tires set up to work over the entirety of the race because of this exact instance. You gotta wait for those tires to warm up. These things are meant to go all day long, but that's just me. But yeah, I also remember, who was it that James Hunt would just absolutely De Cesaris, I think it was, or he just absolutely blitzed him every single time De Cesaris had a spin, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, you are right. You are remembering your broadcast.
Very sarcastic.
Yes. And I will certainly not be doing any of that, despite the fact that I can't bring my voice over this sort of level. But for the moment at least. Out comes David Baker, out comes Kurt Crum. Both of them decided to make a stop over that last lap. Anthony did stay out, as did Toika, Liluoto, and Pete Harrod and David Barraclough. But most crucially enough, they are out ahead. Well, David David E. Baker is most certainly out ahead. And, you know, for the moment, David E. Baker has had an absolutely storming drive, as well as Kurt Crum. They've got probably about 7-8 seconds here on Gabriel Roos. The difference, though, Roos is on fresh rubber. Well, not necessarily fresh rubber, but he's got up to temperature rubber.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say for Kurt Crum and David Baker, I mean, great to see these guys, like I said, going so very quickly. Neither of them have come down into the lane, but unless they did that last lap.
Did that last time by.
They're on their out lap right now. That's why. Okay. Dang it! I did it again. I closed my timing screen now. Don't put your middle button as your push to talk button. It turns everything off when you click. It's been interesting to see how these guys are going here, and Travis Henderson there gets to watch on as a couple of these Grizzly guys. You got a massive gap to Gabriel Roos, and I mean, if you're Gabriel Roos, I mean, how much do you have to be kicking yourself in the rear for having that happen on the exit of pit lane?
A lot. But you know, as a racing driver, that you have to keep on pushing forward. Any mistake has to be filtered out as you make your way forward. Like just this morning, I got disqualified from Skip Barber race on the last lap. So I know I have to keep pushing myself forward as well. But
get a steering wheel, you know.
I have a steering wheel. I just don't have the room to use it. That's the issue that I have. But still, that gap now, because everyone pitting, has allowed Fernando Anthony to gain a 31-second advantage. No, you're not reading this wrong. That is a 31-second advantage for Fernando Anthony, who stays out again and probably will look to go for a nose stop here.
I mean, maybe he'll come in the last couple of laps. If he does a nose stop, that is going to be massively impressive. I mean, a 31-second gap over a multiple-time iRacing official Lotus 79 Series champion of Tapani Linuoloto. I mean, it is just so impressive. And I don't remember who won the championship last year. I almost wonder if it was Fernando.
Well, I will
check.
Yeah, go ahead. By all means, go and check. Fernando Anthony, I don't think races in the CTC Lotus 79 series, but he is absolutely storming at the moment, and it's great to see as David Barraclough hits pit road and makes his one and only stop, hopefully, for the afternoon, coming in on lap 38. The 555 was in third position at the time, so he will most likely cycle behind Marcus Pappenbrock, maybe Diego Jimenez as well, who is yet to come down in and serve a stop. So here's Marcus Pappenbrock rounding himself through Luffield Corner. Woodcote, this long right-hander, which is pretty much a nothing corner in all honesty right now, as Barraclough now gets himself out of the way, passes the green cone, but there goes a certain Gabriel Roos. There goes Marcus Pappenbrock. He's just behind Pappenbrock, so Barraclough has made some great progress over that stint.
Yeah, most certainly, and I haven't been able to find out. So I think it might have been Juha that won the championship in season 2. I don't know who won season 3, but either way, we're in season 3, aren't we?
Yes.
Wow, I need to pay attention to these things. Time flies when you're having fun, I suppose. But yeah, it's been great to see these guys going absolutely lightning quick. I wish that, like I said, they were here more often, as we got a great battle between Marcus Liskinen and Jason Plato, the 888 versus the 002. As here comes Jason Plato in a very, very good livery. It's certainly right out of Mario Kart. This isn't Rainbow Road, it's Silverstone, but it's pretty close to it. And actually, Joshua Wolf, is he involved in this battle? I believe he is.
I believe that he is as well. So 3-car scrap out on track, 12th, 13th and 14th from the Rainbow Machine, which shows a little bit of equality there as well. Finds himself through. Plato having to hold off Marcus Niskanen, but Niskanen really not much more that he can do. Now, I wanted to keep an eye on where Barraclough came out in the stop as he dives against Pete Harrod. Harrod just about keeps himself ahead. Diego Jimenez waiting because he was ahead of Pete Harrod, and Harrod has just saddled on through and has got himself exactly where he wants to be.
Yeah, most certainly he can now push his way through, and it's so easy to do that in this last sector. You pull alongside, you get that inside line, and it turns into the outside line for the final corner, which sets you up for the most speed. You don't want to be on the outside in a GT car. Well, it's not necessarily the same when you've got massive ground effect pulling you in, where the faster you go, the more downforce you have. So Pete was able to get by. Great maneuvering from him, as this is another 3-car scrap that we got to keep an eye on, because here comes Diego Hermilia on David Barriclow.
Yes, and he wants to try and make that move. Does Diego Jimenez? His fastest lap is a 129.5. Let's just put that into context with the race leader right now, who's just gone purple. And when life's not fair, life's really not fair. He just did a 127.6 over that last lap, 0.3 quicker. Anything he's done, little wiggle as he heads his way through Stowe Corner. But still, Diego Jimenez, keep an eye on this one as he makes the charge towards Bridge. They skip the Abbey chicane on the outside, don't make the move on the outside, and just not able to make that happen. So Diego Jimenez really probing for that opportunity, but my God, how quick is Fernando Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, this is just sensational. 33 seconds. It's almost like he's driving a different car. As actually, just as we said that, he almost lost the rears coming through the final sector of this racetrack. It was going through Brooklands. He lost the rears, but he caught it. I think, you know what, though? That's the fastest way to do it. It reminds me, when I first started driving it, we were still on what is technically called now the old tire model, the OTM. While other cars were getting it, this car still had that OTM, and that the way to push those tires was by pushing the car over its limits and sliding it and forcing the car to depend on the downforce. That's almost how Fernando is driving this car right now. He's pushing the car so heavily. Look at his lap time, a 128.399. That is almost the fastest that he's gone. He's doing 127s. It's absolutely sensational.
It is, and well, he did lose 0.7 of a second over the course of that last lap. So certainly, he can go a lot quicker if he can just apply himself properly. But what is very scary is just how much of a gap he has on drivers inside the top 10. 10th place is Diego Jimenez Hormilia. He is 1 minute 21 seconds behind Antley, who will be starting to see Diego Jimenez in the very near future. But right now, just those gaps opening up once more here, just like a second, 2 seconds here or there. Really not finding that opportunity to attack. Drivers starting to maybe fall back a little bit here as Kurt Crum breaks away from David E. Baker, securing the podium. And I think drivers like Lin Luoto are going to be trying to survive to the end as well. And ultimately, it seems that it's not paying off for those drivers who have made that stop.
No, it's surprising. Also, 24 laps remaining, which is exciting. Jason Plato is still just barely ahead of Joshua Wolf and Marcus Niskanen. They're not super close, but they're close enough that if anything happens, a tail wiggle, as Jason Plato takes a little bit too much curb. I think he might have just damaged his right front aero wing, which is very common in these cars. As Plato, you can see how they're getting on the power. I believe it's so cold that when these guys are pushing the engine, they push that Cosworth engine, that the rears just seem so excitable. And for me, that's a differential. I would have probably lowered my diff just a tad, or my clutch gearing whatevers, the preloads, because everyone seems to be having quick rears. As Tapani Liolotto is in the lane.
He is, and he's making his one and only stop, and he's had enough on lap 42. Wants to come down in, get some tyres, get a fresh run of things. Maybe not comfortable with the way things stand right now, but of course, he'll be a lot shorter down on the lane than a lot of other people will be as he looks to hopefully get out and going again. Out of the way he goes, and up to 72 kilometers an hour before getting back onto the power. Around goes Eric Mickey. Here's Kurt Crum, who's already through, so he's got a little bit of work to do. David E. Baker, though, this is a scrap for the podium now. He wants to go down the inside, but no door open.
No, and that was actually slammed by Tapani Liolotto. Good pit stop, him 9.1 seconds as he is out and away. Only needed enough fuel to get to the finish of the race. And I also will say, as here comes obviously cold tires, so David Baker's going to be able to get by. We also have to remember Tapani might have had a little bit of damage through that as well, so that car they might have used that car repair that they have. So Tapani might be a little quicker now.
may just be a little bit quicker, but David E. Baker, certainly no slouch when it comes to racing, certainly one of the quicker drivers, and has probably upwards of about 7,000 I rating that he sits on through all the work that he does through the Fanatec GT series and co. So he knows how to be quick, David E. Baker, as does Stefani Lilloto, both no strangers to a bit of I rating here and there. So just to understand things right now, Antley leads, it's Crum in second, it's Baker in third, Lilloto fourth, then it's Toika, Roos, Pappenbrock, Harrod, Barraclough and Jimenez, who has now fallen one lap down behind a few drivers. Fernando Antley right now currently has himself over a minute's lead right now, 1 minute 3 seconds here now.
Absolutely sensational. If he has the fuel to the finish, I mean, it is incredible to me. I mean, I was totally expecting nobody to come down pit lane. Then everyone came down pit lane, minus the leader. And so he might come in for a splash. I would not get tires at this point. You know, obviously 9.1 seconds though, not bad. He could come in the entirety of the lane. The lane is about 35 seconds. He could come into the lane and still have a 35-second lead. Absolutely sensational pace from Fernando Busquets.
Yes, he's had some very fantastic paces. That's Brammer straight on down at Beckett. So he hit Maggot, he then hit Beckett, heavy over that curb again, and he was effectively taking the international layout then as he went spread sideways and really just didn't have anywhere to go.
No, and he had a couple of issues I was looking at, but he was so down the running order. It's not necessarily a grand old time, but I will say the battle between Gabriel Roos and David Barraclough is on for 8th position, as Gabriel Roos is getting a little bit hustled right now by David Barraclough. Though whom will be have that gap, who knows? But they are both chasing Pete Herod, and Pete Herod is chasing Marcus Pappenbrock. So while the cars are a bit spaced out, Jake, I will say overall the race is fantastic. And Fernando, he just did a 128 flat still, and not having come down pit lane. So absolutely sensational lap time from him.
Yes, and I think he's going to be staying out for a little while longer. He's got 20 laps to go then here at Silverstone, and he has been absolutely dominating everyone with a 1 minute 5 second advantage. He is actually coming up to Roos and Barraclough as the next vehicles he wants to put a lap down. So Barraclough got to get a move on here if he wants to make this move right now. Pete Harrod is a couple of seconds down the road, so get on with it, son. You got to start making moves.
Yeah, and this is part of the big frustration of the Lotus 79 that people just don't seem to be able to grasp. Once you have your setup, once you have your lines, once you have the track temperatures and how they affect your car and the tires that you're happy with and the fuel load that you're happy with, sometimes you get stuck because how the Lotus 79 tends to filter out is everyone manages to qualify and be around the people that are the same speeds as them, which is A, fantastic, but B, very frustrating because you are pushing as hard as you can. If you push any more, you're going to wreck the car, and the car in front of you is doing exactly the same thing. That's what makes these duels so wonderful. Nobody can complain about balance of performance, nobody can complain about setups because everyone shares their setups. It is just straight duels, and it's great because you find yourself surrounded by people who are going the same speed as you, whether it's the front of the pack or the mid pack or the back of the pack. The problem is you can never, you have to somehow improve to be able to hunt them down.
Well, here's the game that I want to play. We've got ourselves 19 laps to go. The gap is 25 seconds right now between Kurt Crum and Fernando Antley out on track the other way. This is the game that Antley needs to play if he wants to lap the entire field, and he pits, so he will not lap the entire field, which is a shame. So he comes down in and he'll still have himself that opportunity. And well, for the moment, Fernando Antley gets himself out and away behind Hector Pereira, and well, a bit of clean air is not going to hurt. Diego Jimenez comes out, but certainly Fernando Antley still got himself about a 45 second lead.
Absolutely, 9.3 second pit stop for him. as he spent 31 seconds in the lane. So that is going to basically have the lead that he has, which is about 30 seconds over Kurt Crum. Absolutely
ridiculous. I think it's the way that we're trying to talk about that one, Cam. And well,
the battle between Wolf and Plato is still going on. I think Wolf might have actually gotten past Plato at some point.
He has, and that is Jason Plato now into 13th place. Josh Wolf now up into 12th. So a lot of positions gained by Plato. He's moved up to 13th, but Josh Wolf +4 on his own. So certainly having a very solid run of things right now. And apparently Cam is under wifey alerts, which is not a good idea at all to be under, as that means, you do have to behave, you do have to be nice. You may need to buy a box of chocolates here and there, but still for the moment, it seems right now that those like Kurt Crum have just got to stay consistent to the end. One wrong mistake in a group which has right now from Barraclough to Kurt Crum split by 16 seconds, you know that one mistake could cost you very easily 8 positions if you're Kurt Crum. And of course, Cam may be a little bit occupied, shall we say, at this moment. That's absolutely lovely when I have a voice that decides it doesn't want to work. Make me talk for a little bit longer. Why don't you? Why don't you? As David Barraclough still within about 0.6 of a second here of Gabriel Roos. It was a 29.7 that last time by from David Barraclough. Compare that to the other 29.7 that Gabriel Roos was able to do. And Gabriel Roos certainly has a different line when it comes to Priory. He likes that shallow line, which just gets him out over the curb come the exit of the corner. So a lot of work now needing to be done. Gap at the front is down to 37 seconds, but that's going to pay no heed between now and the end of this race. So still though, keep an eye on Gabriel Roos. It seems that it's not over, it's not done with, and half a second is very easily overtakeable when it comes to a race like this. Cam, do we have you back? No, we don't. So, still for the moment, Gabriel Roos, David Barraclough making those charges. Marcus Pappenbrock as well, being a little bit worried by Pete Harrod potentially. Take you on board then with David Barraclough just for the moment. We'll take you RaceSpotTV fan immersion powered by ATVO. Has been scored complete by David Barraclough. He moves himself up into 8th position overall. Gabriel Roos had nothing he could really do to fight back as the race leader Fernando Anthony looks to put one lap down. Diego Jimenez in 10th position, and I think he will have to just yield this one here to Anthony, who has proven that he has been the quickest all day long. A 37-second advantage, 40 seconds over the legendary Tapani Linluoto. It's not often that you get to say things like that, and we had this race hallmarked at the start of the season, Cam, as this is Tapani's world. This is the race where the likes of Tapani Linaloto, Ocean Puhaka, it's those sorts of drivers who are supposed to win by miles in this sort of event. It's completely gone the other way.
It is, but I will say, if you ask those drivers, they'll never say anything like that because they're very, very humble. As I'm just watching how Fernando attacks the track. Nobody seems to be able to attack the track like he is, where he's just throwing the rears. The rears step out and he stays right on in it, and the car and him just seem to be on another level, and that is a big thing, a big importance of this. But good battling still going on the other sections of the racetrack. Jake, I have to say this is a fantastic Grand Prix that we have unfolding before us.
Yes, we certainly do. Kurt Crum is under pressure right now from David E. Baker. He closed half a second over that last lap. The gap down to 1.2, and maybe looking to try and close to under a second as Baker looks for second position on the road, trying to take points away from Kurt Crum, who is the championship leader, I do believe, actually heading into this event. So Kurt Crum certainly proving that he's got very well. I know I haven't looked at the standings, but I do believe it was Kurt Crum, so I'm going to have a look then at the standings, see how things look as we head ourselves then through this round. We're in the second half of the season as well, Cam, so drivers thinking about their championships a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. And the championship, I mean, there is 6 rounds. There's a healthy chat going on in the YouTube channel. So, of course, give a salute to you guys. But either way,
I'm very wrong.
What's that?
I'm very wrong with that championship pick. That should be Harrod that has the championship lead. Kurt Crum's an 8.
Hugo laying down the law. Hugo, he's just like, aha, and he hits a button and shows us all around as we're watching a great battle on screen. As the 21 machine of Pete Herod has now gotten around. Now that's a lap car of James King and Travis Henderson. So those two cars are fighting, and Pete Herod was just getting his way through. But yeah, championship standing. So I mean, hey, there you go. It's surprising in a way, but you know what? That goes to show you it's consistency, not just victories.
Yes, and Travis Henderson then makes his way through on James King, and I believe that Pete Harrod has not had a win so far this season, but he's had 4 top 5 finishes. Team Mutoika's had a win and 4 top 5 finishes. He's currently in second. Niskanen and Penttinen third and fourth. No Penttinen here today. So Fernando Antoli, who's in 6th position, he's certainly going to be gaining a lot of points coming out of this one. If he can score a victory, he won the opening round of the season and he's looking for another one. And currently he is in very good position to gain a few points. Certainly the road has been his beneficiary, and we've seen how Antoli has grown and developed over the last year or so. Part of the Cavalier setup, now moving over to Obsidian. It seems that Fernando Antoli is going to be a really hot prospect for the future.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is open wheel at its best, and I gotta ask the question, Jake, seeing as you're more familiar with this than others. I'm not familiar with Obsidian Racing. Are they going to be a big open wheel team? Are they going to be a GT team arriving on the scene? Have they already arrived, or are they going to be prototype racing? I mean, you want to take a look at how fast Fernando is going. These skills translate. Let me put it this way. I can wheel around an LMP1 car well. I'm talking mid-pack, as long as I have a pretty decent setup and comfortable with the racetrack and the lines. And the only reason why I can do that is because I raced this car here, this Lotus 79. If you put him in an LMP1 car, I mean, it's got to be absolutely massive.
It certainly could be, but right now Obsidian not really making too much of a big noise at the moment in sim racing. We'll see what they are able to do a little bit later on in the year. Potentially the likes of the 24 Hours of Le Mans really does come to mind. David Baker's closing down on Kurt Crum for second. The gap is under a second. We've also got Pappenbrock right now against Harrod. This one for 6th position. Harrod looking to get more points in the championship here against Pappenbrock and against all the rivals that are there. So right now, gap 7/10 of a second for Kurt Crum. Worries right now. 2 great battles then as we have ourselves 13 laps remaining. Yeah,
absolutely, and the time is ticking down, and these drivers are going to start. You got to adjust your ARBs. You gotta get yourself set it out and sorted. You maybe do a little bit of adjustment on the brake bias. I always have to. And you gotta also look between this battle between Kurt Crum and David Baker. I mean, that's a fight for the podium. That's absolutely sensational. But you also got to look a little bit further in the field. They have battles all across the racetrack. Joshua Wolf versus Jason Plato. That is for a 12th position. That is Grizzly versus Boosted. Both having good, lovely paint schemes. But I got to say, it's great to see. We have multiple battles. It's always a bit of a hazard when you do classic cars like this, Jake, simply due to the fact that perhaps people would just fall over to the side and have incidents, and then you would just have maybe somebody that's raced the car a couple of times run away with everything. Here, we're not seeing that. We're seeing that these drivers, they're adapting to it, they're racing very well, and they're actually doing racing on the track, even though they might not have really ever raced this car before. It's great to see.
Here comes Pete Harrod down the inside of Papenbrock. Oh, that's a glorious move. I'm sorry, that is a fantastic move there. Commitment plus from Pete Harrod. He had to get the grit, determination, and arguably he had to get his manlyhood out of his pocket to try and make that move, and he made that work.
That was at 100. He decided, he made the shift in position at 163 miles an hour. And he skirched over that. The slowest he got was 129 miles an hour. That's absolutely sensational. What a wonderful pass that he has done, but can he keep it?
Well, at the moment, Marcus Papenbrock doesn't have much of a response, and more crucially than that, Harrod has got himself about 9 seconds if he wants to get to Timu Toika, so he's relying on a mistake. Crum's last lap then, we'll focus on this, was a 1:29.1, 29 flat from Baker, but Little Oto's also closing in on this. He just did a 28.8 that last time by, making this one effectively a 3-car scrap as he's 1.3 behind them. Little Oto's got the afterburners on. Don't count me out. I'm not dead and buried and on the shelf. I can still race this car.
Absolutely. The tires are coming up the tent. He's all right there. The car's suspension, if it was damaged, is now fixed. The fuel is getting light. These cars are getting so light. You know, a lot of people say, you know, a GT car will be, you know, a couple of tenths quicker. But you ask some drivers, qualify with full fuel load, because it doesn't really matter that much. These cars, a full fuel load and a light fuel load is a massive shift in weight on the suspension, on the wheels, on everything. And so, you know what? You get these cars light and quick, perhaps other people rise to the top, because Tapani Lineolotto, as they go across the start-finish line, it was a 1:29.2 for Crum, a 1:29.4 for Baker, and a 1:28.8 for Tapani Lineolotto. So he is going quick.
He is. He's now within 0.7 of a second. The old philosophy about Lotus vehicles, well, it's not quick enough. We need to make it lighter. Oh, we've crashed a little bit. We need to make it lighter. Oh, we've won 54 races out of 55. We need to make it lighter. That's the sort of thing you look at. You need to make it lighter, as the 48 and the 888 now going too wide as they make their run towards the right-hander of Bridge, and that's Plato's got it there, and Josh Wolf, oh, he turned in and he had to abruptly turn out again because Plato was still there with a chunky rear tire.
Absolutely sensational maneuvering and positioning from these guys as Plato is able to get around Joshua Wolf. But Wolf does have the speed to counter as long as he hangs on to the rear here. They're coming out the final corner of Woodcock as they're going towards Cott's Corner one more time. Jason Plato, sensational maneuvering in that boosted machine over the Grizzly car.
Oh, yes, he is, and he's got that position, and now he can try and run away for the hills right now. Still got Kurt Crum, David Baker, Tapani Lineolotto, but the gap has abstained over that last lap as Hector Pereira retires the vehicle 4 laps down in 22nd position. For the moment, Tapani is doing a 29 flat, 29 flat, and 29 flat. They are all split, get this, by just 12 thousandths of a second over that last lap. They are matching each other for pace here, Cam.
That's what you get, and I'm willing to bet that if you took these drivers out of their car and put them in the other driver's car, they would not be able to do good laps. That is just how razor fine-tuned these machines are for these guys. Absolutely sensational. And they're all getting their speed in different ways. I love it. And let's hope we can see if we can continue to get this battle. We have got less than 10 laps to go after an hour and 20 minutes of racing. Absolutely sensational.
Well, 10 laps to go. Everyone knowing that they can't afford to throw anything away. Points at stake, especially Fernando Antley. sitting now with 9 laps to go and a 42, maybe even a 45-second advantage plus come the end of this race. Probably looking at more like 50 seconds, maybe even a minute if he's lucky. But right now, it's about, well, can I get to the rear of the drivers in front of me? Can I get these positions? Because the dirty air effect is proving that it is causing a little bit of a nuisance for Lin-Luoto, who was closing at a rate of knots and has now got stuck. And we've seen David Baker stuck for the majority of this second stint.
I almost wonder if it's because Kurt Crum has given a big old draft to David Baker, and that is allowing David Baker to pull ahead of Tapani Lin-Luoto. And Lin-Luoto, we know, is light on the downforce as far as the drafting goes. But you know what? If David Baker's getting the tow, it's a little bit difficult. It doesn't multiply. It's not like the Skip Barber cars where you get 2 or 3 cars all together in a draft that can do some sort of mega pull. That's not really what happens here. The draft is only really good for that car you're following. And so it's a little difficult here as Tapani's just trying to get it up into the gears and down the road. And, well, it's been great to see. We have a battle for the podium. How often can you say that in any series, in any race? And we still got great battling going on in the rest of the field.
Yes, we do. We've got the battle for 7th going on. Pappenbrock's falling back into the clutches of David Barraclough of Torque Freak Racing. 5-5-5. Well, he wants to get himself then through into half of 5 plus 5 plus 5, which is 15, which is position number 7. As right now, he probably sits in position 7.5 right now here, Cam.
Boo. You're doing math and stuff. It's confusing. As Sylvain Maillard has gotten past Dawson Brock for 20th position. That is right in front of your leader, Fernando Busquets, as that is going on there. I believe Sylvain Maillard is going to be able to catch perhaps David Baker. So we have battles for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and we also have battles for the very last position of the running cars. And that, I believe, tells you right on the tin what you're dealing with when you're looking at a series like this.
Everyone is battling with everybody else, and David E. Baker is falling backwards into the clutches of Tapani Lin-Luoto. The gap in front of Kurt Crum is 1.1 seconds. Tapani is the quickest man of the 3 still, though, and he's starting to get the draft more and more. He's starting to think about, okay, can I get a little bit more aggressive more and more? And the answer is Tapani can at this moment as he heads through Chapel, and he's just been whittling away, chopping down the tree like a lumberjack right now. That gap down to 0.4 of a second, and in about a couple of laps, David E. Baker's not going to know what's hit him.
Or like Finnish people drinking alcoholic beverages, they sneak up on you. You think you're doing all right, you think you're on par with them, and then at some point you're on the bar, you're drooling on the table, and the Finnish person is just laughing at you. So perhaps something like that is going on, because I can't. Finnish people would just drink me under a table. But I will say, while this is going on, Kurt Crum is pulling away.
He is, ever so slightly, just marginally pulling that gap, but all of a sudden David E. Baker finds a little bit of pace and brings himself back into the picture then with 7 laps to go as these drivers cross the line. 6.5 right now for your race leader, but Marcus Pappenbrock has actually lost the position over that last lap. Barraclough has found his way through. He did that through Stowe Corner, got the draft lovely, went down to the inside, textbook maneuver here in a Lotus 79, and just made sure there was nothing that Pappenbrock could have done, Cam.
No, great positioning, and I'm very happy with that. That was pretty respectful how that all went down. And for Barraclough, that's another Torque Freak car. I almost wonder, is David Barraclough one of the top running Torque Freak guys? I know that a couple of the Torque Freak cars. Yeah, there you go. I know that they were pretty much right involved with that incident. At the very beginning of the race, that kind of threw that team asunder, but so great running from him as Fernando Busquets has now gotten around David Baker, and that has allowed, because it was so weird positioning coming off the final quarter, that's allowed David Baker to slip into the clutches of Sylvain Maillard.
It has, and of course that battle going on for 20th position. We'll keep an eye on that one. Not necessarily the most important one. Jason Plato on pit road, and that is going to be an incident, and that was heading through Club Corner. Gets on the power through, and he gets wicked snap oversteer, and he's into the tyres hard. I believe,
I can tell you right now, his left front, it went up the curb, and it actually, once it went up the curb, the car, the directionally went up into the air. The air kind of lifted off of him, There was no downforce kind of on the front. It was all going underneath. And then obviously the car started losing the rears, and that just spun him right on out with snap oversteer and parked it right into the outside wall. Very unfortunate. Good slow motion here. You're seeing how that right front is in the air just a tad, and then he goes out and spills it into the outside wall. That's very saddening, especially when there's only so few laps to go, Jake.
Yeah, so very, very few, and that few number is 5 when they next cross the line, as Fernando Ansley in the 5.53 will do in about 10 seconds time. But to Luoto, he's starting to see David E. Baker, pull away at the moment. He gained a 10th on that last lap, and also gained a 10th on Kurt Krum. So Krum certainly not out of the woods right now. That gap is 7/10 of a second. Maybe seeing those tyres cool down to give it one last push, one last attack. But as we all know, some very, very strong drivers. Kurt Krum may be more familiar to the Skip Barber 2K World Cup Series presented by DES Simulation. Tapani Luoto, arguably one of the legends of classic motorsport racing. He can put himself up there with the likes of Keith Ritchie, the likes of Gernot Friche. You could even say the likes of Mick Claridge. That's just how good that he can be on any given day, on any given month of any given year. They head through Brooklands, now into Luffield. They'll start 5 laps to go, but right now Kurt Krum finds himself in a commanding position, but David Baker right now certainly stuck between two worlds here of attacking and defending.
Yeah, absolutely. And you find yourself into that in the strength of field races when there's 30 cars, 40 cars ready to rock and roll. You find yourself in that position very frequently because the guy behind you might be fast in some corners, you're fast in other corners, faster than the guy in front of you in some corners, but you can't really seem to attack because they've got free space ahead of them. And positioning, it can be frustrating, it can be exciting, and if these guys aren't careful, it could certainly be dramatic in unhappy ways. But you also got to give a shout out to Kurt Krum here, this bombshell motorsports driver. Absolutely sensational job he is doing in this Lotus 79 second position. That is, that is definitely
that's a pickle around.
Oh, whoa, who's that?
I don't know. That was just passing them. And hang on, just give me a moment because I had a look at it, and I believe it was Josh Wolf of all people, who just went around 180'd it into the grass that he went, and ultimately took the toe away from it. So,
he big crash. He crashed it coming off of Maggots.
Oh,
lost it, and he clipped the grass. He clipped it, and he hit the outside wall. He actually hit a bump so bad he flipped the car.
Wow, absolutely horrific accident then for Josh Wolf, and I'm just going to get an eye on that because I only saw the spin that he had down at Stowe Corner. So he's had more than one incident, and a pretty hefty one as well. That was at Maggots that carried on into Beckett. You're absolutely right there, Cam. A little snap of oversteer, and he's desperately trying to save it, but he runs out of road, and oh my goodness, how that vehicle's actually drivable, I will never know after that one. But all of a sudden, Kurt Krum has found a bit of gap there. It was a slow lap from David E. Baker. This has allowed Tapani Luoto a chance at the podium. What has happened to David E. Baker over that last lap? He was incredibly slow coming out of Club Corner and really has struggled over the course of that last lap.
And coming out of the fog, they do, as David Baker is just trying to keep himself ahead of that orange machine. And it's just, it's one of those big battles. It's one corner. This entire race, the next 3 laps, sitting on the podium could come down to not getting a good exit or having a bad entry into one corner, Jake. That is how a razor's edge these guys are. I know I keep talking about dancing on that razor's edge, but it is accurate as Tapani is closing in to the final sector.
We've also got Gabriel Roos trying to close in desperately on Marcus Pappenbrock in the last few laps as well to gain one more vital position. Tapani Luoto still hoping to find a way past David E. Baker, the touring car specialist here in the number 06 machine. And for the moment, David E. Baker has not much of a gap to work with. 0.3 of a second, 'tis all that he has to work with. 28.7 and a 28.6 between them. So actually, Baker was quicker over that last lap, but that might not be beneficial because that gives a better run for Lin Luoto, who maybe you could argue was checked slightly on that last lap, heading through the lefts and rights of Maggots, Beckett's, and now Chappell, and now the dirty air effect hurting Lin Luoto as he heads onto the hangar straight. No DRS here on these old vehicles, but my goodness, would Lin Luoto want some?
Yeah, I mean, his car is going about 4 miles an hour faster, so he is closing, but it's just not enough. And also, kind of a weird curse thing, it was Plato who had an incident, and then 1 lap later, Josh Wolf had an incident. Those were the 2 guys that were fighting each other all race long, essentially, so that was oddly enough. But Lin Luoto was able to catch just a bit. They both go well off track. That's okay. You know, I wonder, is Lin Luoto going to attack in the final sector? Is that what he's planning for?
I wonder if he is, because, again, just not able to find the run through Priory Corner and Bridge, and now he heads himself into Brooklands, not really close enough to make a concerted effort, and he's starting to really struggle here, maybe misgearing slightly as he's dropping back a little bit. And again, David E. Baker finding a little bit of a gap, a bit of respite with 2 laps to go. And Cam, really, David E. Baker is just being so consistent. 28.8 that last time, by another 10th he finds.
Yeah, and he's able to get it. Obviously, he's got the clear air, but you don't know how aggressive Tapani can be sometimes. I wouldn't call it aggressive. I would call it insistent. He's always a very polite driver in essence of how some people are very, I don't want to use the term nasty, but they're very aggressive with getting positioning. They will put their cars in positions that they just have no opportunities to really defend or attack against. And for me, Tapani, he doesn't seem to do that. But you know what, though? We've only got 2 laps to go of the Grand Prix here at Silverstone.
I'll correct you, Cam. The white flag has just been taken by Fernando Antoli, 45 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. He has been sensational today. He has been on a different planet, and there's not much you could do to really close that down. We'll keep an eye on this battle, though. Baker versus Lin Luoto for the final spot on the podium. And again, Baker taking that more shallower line, which opens up for Lin Luoto to maybe have an attack at Brooklands, but again, not quite close enough. He needs a run on the hangar straight. That's been the place where the most overtaking opportunities happen, and there's traffic in front. Marcus Niskanen, Andres Silsans, both in their scrap for 12th position out on circuit. And look at Lin Luoto closing down that gap, turning on the afterburners, going for it at turn number 1, down the inside, not quite finding it, and all of a sudden, Lin Luoto nearly got the move on David Baker, but now he starts falling backwards. Now there's a little bit of a worry, but we turn to Fernando Antoli, who heads into the stadium section for the final time in this event. He has dominated a way that nobody has seen before, and not many people will see since. Fernando Antoli Busquets will come to the line and absolutely wipe the floor with everybody else. He wins at Silverstone in the Classic. For now, it's a long wait for Crum, Baker, and Lin Luoto. We keep an eye as well on Papenbrock. A mistake for Gabriel Roos. He will not be involved in the final stages. But Lin Luoto maybe a little bit too far back now, Cam, to make a move. Needs a mistake from the Baker.
Yeah, and I think it was a little too much for me going into that corner. I would have waited, but you know what, though? Good attempt, and it was respectful. He backed out when he knew that Baker was not going to yield, and he was trying to get Baker to go offline, and it ended up him going offline, so good battling, respectful battling from these guys, but I'm pretty confident it's going to go to the 06 STP car as they will come off the final corner.
It will, unless he runs out of fuel heading to the line, and he doesn't, so David Baker holds on to the podium. Great little scrap to get himself on that podium as well. Some good drives as well. Pete Harrod, 6th position. I think he'll be very, very happy with the way that he is driven. Damage limitation in terms of his championship lead, and he'll be very pleased with the way that he has finished. Gabriel Roos, what could have been for him as well in position number 9. He'll be the last vehicle on the leading lap. So, with practically everybody across the line, and donuts starting from Fernando Antoli through the club corner section, this is what classified results look like. It's almost impossible to do donuts in these vehicles. There's too much traction. What don't you understand here, Fernando Antoli, who wins by 46 seconds over Kurt Krum, with David E. Baker in third. Tapani Linaloto finishes fourth. With Tosnelki, that is Teemu Tuikka, finishing home in fifth place. Pete Harrod, championship leader, damage limitation in sixth. He gained 2 positions, with David Barraclough finishing seventh. Marcus Pappenbrock would finish eighth, ninth to Gabriel Roos, and Diego Jimenez rounds out the top 10. Not necessarily the best day overall for Andre Rajkovic, maybe a little bit too concerned with interviews at his home more rather than practicing for this race. He finishes in 11th position. Andres Silsans finished it, or Sleesans, shall I say, as I look at it. He finishes in 12th, just ahead of Marcus Niskanen in 13th. Eric Mickey in 14th, with James King +8 to the 15th position, 1 lap down. 1 lap down as well for Travis Henderson. Sylvain Maillot finishes 2 laps down, as does Dawson Brock. The other David Baker, David H. Baker, and Jason Plato failing to get over the line. Josh Wolf, Hector Pereira, likes of Brian Reniers, Tim Claysons, and David Van Broek all failing to make it to the end. We're going to step aside very briefly here on RaceSpotTV. When we come back, post-race coverage here of the Major Series. We'll be there after this. Well, we went old-timey for a little bit. We brought the classic cards out, the Lotus 79s. We put them on Silverstone on a historic layout and put them around for a good hour and a half to see who was quickest. It was pretty convincing come the end. Fernando Antley making sure that he'd get himself the race victory. Fantastic work from him, but a lot of work up and down the field being put in as we're on the post-race show on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. I am hashtag Do You Mind Jake Sperry, the observer of sim racing, joined with Mr. Cameron Walsh, and actually an interview here. The driver who came home in 4th position, Tapani Linaloto. Tapani, when we looked at the start of the season, when we saw the classic Lotus 79s put on the calendar, we all put a big red circle around you and said, you're winning, maybe by about 3 minutes and a light year. What happened?
Well, I suppose I'm not as fast as I used to be. But Fernando did an excellent job. I don't know what he found from the car that we didn't, but he was obviously faster than anyone else there.
Well, you found yourself in some really patient battling here today. A track and a car that you really have to respect when you get around this circuit. So for you, finding yourself behind David E. Baker for the longest time and also leaving yourself in a battle with Teemu Toika, who had to wait about a third of a race to try and get by. Just how patient do you have to be in these vehicles? How difficult is it to race this style of racing?
Well, the pace is so close that you can get to around half a second, and then it's uphill from there to pass. So it's really difficult to pass if the other guy is as fast as you, but with a small mistake, it's possible. I didn't have the best qualifying, so I had my weird race pit stop strategy, which worked pretty well, but if I had been a couple of seconds faster on my first stint, well, who knows.
Two things then to finish, well, three things actually to finish things off. The first question is, what would you give as advice to the other drivers who are waiting to do this major series race in the Atlantic and Pacific splits? What would you say is your opinion moving forward of the Spa 2.4 in 3 weeks' time? How are you feeling for that one? And any shout-outs for sponsors?
Well, only a shout-out from my mom. Well, one stop is the way to go, and if you put 45.5 liters of fuel, you can get it in one can, so you save a couple of seconds there on the pits. I don't know. That's it, I guess.
Well, that's it, I guess. You still didn't answer about how you're feeling about the Spa 2.4 in 3 weeks' time.
Well, I haven't really thought about it.
We'll get back to you on it. We'll get back to you.
It's GT3. I'm not really up to the how GT3 works nowadays, so I really don't know.
Oh, whatever floats your boat, man. Tapani Linluoto then coming home in 4th position overall. But Cam, 3 weeks' time, GT3s up at the 2.4 hours of Spa. It's going to be a good one.
2.284? Is it what?
2.4.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say we're getting very, very exact here with the times. Yeah, very specific. I will say, if you want the Lotus 79 community, well, Tapani Linluoto just gave you the fuel strategy that you need in his winning speech. So that right there tells you how open the community is. But yeah, no, this has been fantastic. I mean, the first full-length Grand Prix I've seen in these cars. Great battling, absolutely sensational drive from Fernando Antoli. Absolutely great. Great driving all throughout the field, even for the final couple of positions. Some late race drama, and Jake, I gotta say, I mean, outside of that incident going into turn 1 at the start of this Grand Prix, it's been absolutely fantastic.
Oh, I have to agree with you there, but unfortunately, that's all we've got time for here on RaceSpotTV with the major series going on. Got to give a few shout-outs and thank yous to the people who get it done for us. First, to Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22. They do a fantastic job of providing the pictures that you see. Make sure you keep an eye out on them, as well as Adwern Designs, the official graphics partners here at RaceSpotTV, along with Apgeneer and ATVO, the official graphics engine here at RaceSpotTV. The animations that you see are thanks to Simon Grossman, and the live timing and scoring is thanks to Nick Thyssen. But don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, there is so much great action that you can find from RaceSpotTV, be it here on the RaceSpotTV YouTube or on the brand new iRacing Esports Network. Make sure that you subscribe to them when you have the chance, because we have all 6 of the iRacing World Championships and so much more that crops up on a week-to-week basis, such as the Skip Barber 2K World Cup, the Monday Night Skippies, and the SOR V8 Super Trucks as well. But it is Fernando Antoli who stands head and shoulders above the rest of the field when it comes to a classic car. And my goodness, did he stand up against the likes of the greats. He put Linluoto in his place. He now looks almost as quick as the likes of Friche, Moreira, Ruacola, Machias, and the rest of the gang. But for now, we wait 3 weeks for GT3 action. We'll see you in that span of time.